at maximum power.
Laser and charged particle beam weapons.
Weapons activated.
Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I want to do a little something different because recently I had a few things that happened to me that made me put in perspective the idea that life could be over that quick. I got into an accident a while back and I flipped my bike, broke both my arms, had a concussion, and I could have died. I could have snapped my neck and died at that time. And so it brought into perspective a lot of things, and I've had other things happen after that that made me start questioning, you know, how fragile life is. You know, there's hundreds of thousands of people who died in Ukraine, and you think the people who are making the decisions that cause these people to die are even thinking twice about it? No, they're not. They don't care. And that's the point. There's so many people in this world doing things that destroy people's lives, and they don't care. So my life, your life, we could all be done in a moment's notice, and there's nothing we could do about it. So it made me think, if I was to die tomorrow, a lot of people might not even really know who I was. So I wanted to start this channel. I'm looking at this channel from a different perspective, because when I originally started, this is my first YouTube channel, and when I originally started this first YouTube channel, I did it to create, to post my music, because I was a musician at the time. Drinking mango juice today. But that didn't work out. There's a lot of things that happened that caused my music ambitions to completely die off. I'll get into that later. But I wanted to go through my life and let this video be the video that kind of lets people really get to know who I am. I did a video about that before, but I don't think it really put things in order, because like I said, if I was to die tomorrow, no one would really know who I am. And so if I make this video, then at least people will know who I am, at a very basic sense. Because there's a lot of people who know me from different points in my life, but they don't know what I did a few years before that, because sometimes I didn't even talk about it. So there are people who know me, but they don't really know me. You know what I'm saying? So this is going to give people more of a better idea of who I am. And so it's going to serve as a record for me and for people in my family, so that they can reference and they can really know who I am and what I did in the past. And so if anybody really wants to know who I am, like it or hate it, they're gonna know who I am on a very fundamental level. That's why I'm doing this video. And then from this point on, everything I say from this point on in other videos, like you have people who do talk channels, who are ex-fighters and stuff like that, and the only thing they really did was fight. Well, there's a lot of things that I did, and so when I reference something in my other videos in the future, you'll know I have some kind of experience in that area, because I'm telling you now exactly what I did in the past, so that everyone will know. Okay, so I grew up on a small farm in Michigan, and from the time I was old enough to walk, I was working the farm. I was doing all, my dad took me around the farm every time he was working on the farm, and I fed the animals, and I farmed the crops and drove the tractors and stuff like that. So from the very beginning, as soon as I was old enough to walk, I was following my dad around all over the farm and doing this and doing that to help him. And that never stopped until we moved from that farm. So from very early on, I was plowing the fields and feeding the animals and stacking hay and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I grew up on a small farm in Michigan. Okay, when I was working on the farm in Michigan, some of the first things that I did was I used to I used to farm the crops. And when the harvest time came around, my dad taught me how to sell the vegetables and the pumpkins and stuff like that. And so with that money, when I used to sell the pumpkins, the first harvest season I bought a mini bike, and then I bought a go-kart, and then the next harvest season after that I bought a Yamaha 80cc motorcycle, and then a couple of years after that I bought a Yamaha 125 dirt bike. So my point is that I learned a little bit about business from a very early age. My father taught me about business and how to sell stuff to make money. and the value of business and all that kind of stuff, and working for yourself. He taught me that, you know, it's better to work for yourself than it is to work for someone else. But evidently I didn't learn that lesson very well, because I went on to do other things, and it didn't work out so well. But I had a good start in the beginning anyways. And my obsession when I was really young was fire trucks. I was like really into fire trucks, and because my dad was a volunteer fireman. He was a tool maker for Ford Motor Company, a machinist. He was a pretty good one, and he part-time he was a volunteer fireman, and so I used to go with him to the fires from when I was really young. Most of the time when I first started going to the fires with him, I used to have to sit in the truck, in his truck. But later, all the guys in the fire department got to know who I was, and they used to let me hang out on top of the fire truck while they were fighting the fire. And then later on, I was riding to the fires all the time. If it wasn't with my dad, it was with one of the other firemen who I'd be hanging out with when I wasn't at home, and the fire whistle would go off and we'd go to the fire station, and I'd ride to the fire with all those guys. But so my ambition when I was really young was I was going to be a firefighter. Right up until the time I got into high school, that was my ambition. That's what I was going to do. I had a serious plan to become a firefighter. But when I got into high school, my mom started studying nursing, and I started reading all of her medical books. Sometimes she didn't even know that I was reading her medical books, because most of the time she was asleep when I was doing it. But I was reading all of her medical books, and so I got an interest in medicine. And in junior high and my first couple of years in high school, I had started a college prep course to go become a doctor, because I already had a good basic understanding of internal medicine already. And but when I got into that, I started part of it was they had me watching videos of motorcycle accidents and really horrific accidents where people's brains were all over the road and stuff like that, and I just couldn't take the blood and guts. So I completely changed my direction, and I decided I was going to start doing music. And I was really passionate about music from the time I was like 15, 16 years old. I was like totally into music. I was playing classical guitar, or studying classical guitar and electric, and I worked in a music store, and I was practicing anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day and studying music theory for about an hour a day. But that's what I was doing after I got into high school. And but as I was working the music store, my dad got cancer, and I had to make some decisions about what I was going to do with my life, because he was dying and there was nobody to support me after that. And so I had to make some decisions. I had to get my life stable. And so what I did was I joined the Air Force, and I went to Texas for basic training, and then I went to Lowry Air Force Base in Colorado. I first got in the Air Force, I tried to do electronics, but I failed the colorblind test, so they wouldn't let me do electronics. And then after I got to Colorado in the training center, I tried to get into the music, into the band, because I was already into music, so I figured it would be easy for me to just go into the band because I'm already trained. And they wouldn't even think about it, wouldn't even consider it. And so then so they allowed me to become a cook. That's what I was given. I was allowed to become a cook. So I became a cook and went to cook training, and then I went to cooking school and baking school, and then I went to Montgomery Air Force Base, Alabama, and I worked in a hospital as a cook. And as soon as I got there, I started trying to see if I could cross-train into the Air Force band, because I heard that you can cross-train even after they selected what career field you're going into. So I started talking to the Air Force band, and they were like, yeah. And at that time, I was doing a lot of talent contests, because I was pretty good at guitar by then. And so I was doing a lot of talent contests, and I got to meet Tommy Shaw, and I was pretty well known at that time as a musician. And so the Air Force band, they was like, yeah, we can make this happen. And then I got orders, and I was like, well, I thought I was going to be able to cross train into music. Nope. Air Force's needs comes first. So I was shipped out to Guam from Montgomery, Alabama. So I went to Guam, and I was a cook in Guam. But when I was in Montgomery, Alabama, working in the hospital, they got short-staffed on the other side of the kitchen for diet therapy, and so they trained me as a diet therapist. They sent me to school for a couple of weeks and certified me as a diet therapist, because I was sitting in the diet therapist office reading their books every time I had a break. So they just decided, we'll just make him a diet therapist. So they certified me as a diet therapist. But then, because my primary career field was cook, I got orders to Guam to work in a regular dining hall. And while I was in Guam, I studied martial arts, Filipino martial arts, and I studied Tagalog. And that was the first language that I started studying, was Tagalog. I started learning all about Filipino culture and stuff like that in Guam. First I was working in the dining hall, then I worked in the storeroom, and then I worked as in the flight kitchen. And when I was working in the flight kitchen, I met a lot of high-ranking officers. Because I worked the dining hall first, then I worked the storeroom, and I used to pick up the deliveries from the commissary and put them in the storeroom and account. I did a lot of the accounting and stuff like that in the storeroom in Guam. And then I went from there to the flight kitchen. And when I was working at the flight kitchen, a lot of times in the middle, I was working night shift, and a lot of times in the middle of the night, I would have a lot of high-ranking officers come in there and drink coffee with me, like full bird colonels and stuff. And they were really cool. They would come in and chat with me, and I'd have long conversations with them, like sometimes an hour long. And I got to know the base commander, who was a full bird colonel, and I think that led me into I was offered the opportunity to become a general's aide, and I went and I was a general's aide for I think it was about a month. But I really didn't like that job. I liked the general, he was really cool, but I really didn't like the job of being a general's aide, especially as an enlisted guy. I wanted to be the guy who made the hotel reservations, not the guy who cleaned his house. And that's what I was. I was the guy who cleaned his house and made his dinner. And it wasn't really that great. Especially, a lot of times you have to deal with the wife of the general. The general might be really cool, but the wife might not be so cool. So yeah, it wasn't a real good wasn't a real good fit for me. So I went back to work at the flight kitchen, and then from there, from Guam, I went to the Philippines, because I had already been studying Tagalog, and I studied Filipino martial arts, and so I went to the Philippines. And when I went to the Philippines, they made me a hotel front desk manager for the night shift, and I had 14 employees, and it was pretty good. I lived off base, and I was speaking Tagalog and eating the food and living the life. It was good for a couple of years, but a lot happened in the Philippines while I was there. A lot of bad stuff happened, and they had the communist NPA in the Philippines, and they killed a couple of people while I was there, and it really had a negative effect on me. Airman Green and Airman Raven were assassinated by the communist NPA while I was there, and I'm not gonna ever forget that. So that really wore on me for a long time. But after the Philippines, I wanted embassy duty. I wanted embassy duty either in Thailand or Vietnam. I felt I deserved embassy duty after all the BS I went through in the Philippines. I had a girlfriend in the Philippines, and she died while I was TDY, and that's another thing that really messed with my head. So I had a lot of really bad experiences while I was in the Philippines, but I came out of it okay, and I went they didn't give me embassy duty in Thailand or Vietnam. So when it came time for me to re-enlist, I basically told them, If you're not going to give me what I want, I'm not re-enlisting. And so because I didn't re-enlist, they had to send me back to the mainland. And they were going to send me to Minot, South Dakota, into a missile base underground for 3 days at a time. And I was like, no way, I'm not going there. So they sent me to California, to George Air Force Base, California, for 6 months. And then I got out of the Air Force and I went to Hawaii. Got a job working as a cashier for the music department in Woolworths. That was the job I got when I got out of the Air Force. I also, when I was in Hawaii, also worked as a cook for Jack in the Box. And then a short while after that, I worked for Sizzlers. First I started as a waiter, and then I went to a host cashier, and then I worked as a cook for a little while. But during that time while I was in Hawaii, I also helped to, because I was dealing with the communist NPA in Philippines, as soon as I got to Hawaii, they had communists trying to take over Hawaii too. So I immediately went to the headquarters of the communists and I negotiated them to not use violence in any of their stuff, because in the Philippines they didn't care, they were shooting people, and I was afraid that that was going to start happening in Hawaii. They were just going to start assassinating people, political assassinations. And when I was in the Philippines, the NPA tried to kill me twice, and luckily I got out of it. But Sparrow hit units came after me twice in the Philippines. So yeah, like I said, there was a lot of bad things that happened to me when I was in the Philippines. But when I went to, after the Philippines, I went to California. I became a housekeeping supervisor, and then that was for just 6 months, and then I moved to Hawaii. And then when I was in Hawaii, I did cashier for a music department, and then I did cook for Jack in the Box, and then I started working for Sizzlers, and I did waiter and host cashier and then cook. And then I started studying computers in Hawaii, computer repair and electronics, and I started fixing old computers. I started going to Salvation Army and Goodwill and buying pallets of their old computers and bringing them home and fixing them and then turning around and selling them. I wasn't making very much money, but that's where my computer experience first started. I was using computers in the Philippines. In 1989, we implemented a computer system in a hotel for people never saw computers before, and I never saw computers before. So, but I started actually using computers every single day from 1989 on. And then in Hawaii, I started actually fixing computers. And then I started learning about DOS, and then shortly after that, I started doing web design. But I had a little break in Hawaii. My stepfather died, and I went back to help my mom remodel her condo in Florida. And then I went back to Hawaii for a little while, and I did a little bit more computer repair, but I also did security guard for a little while for an apartment complex. And then it wasn't long after that I left Hawaii for good and went back to Florida, and I worked Pier 1, and then I got a job working for Super 8 Motel in Pompano Beach as a front desk night audit for the night shift. And then like a year or so after that, I moved to Michigan and helped my mom remodel her house or renovate her house, because a lot of it was getting run down. And so I fixed it up a little bit, and I tried doing a little computer repair in Michigan, but I couldn't get any customers. But what I did start doing in Michigan during that time was I recorded my first CD for music, and I filmed my first documentary movie, which was The Frozen Zone. And I used a lot of the music that I recorded for my movie, but I never sold my movie, and I never got any money from my music. but I thought I was going to, so I packed everything up and I moved to California, moved to San Diego, California, and that was in 2007. And I got a job working for Super 8 in Point Loma. And then it wasn't long after I moved to there, maybe not even a year, 6 months, I moved down to Mexico. Because one of my friends said, hey, you lived in the Philippines, you love Mexico. So he took me down to Mexico, and then the next day I just moved down there. And I stayed down in Mexico for a total of 12 years, but I left and there was a break. After about 6 years, I went back to Guam and worked in the Hilton, and then I came back. But I lived in Tijuana, Mexico for about a total of 12 years. But and I went back and forth working the hotels in San Diego. I worked Super 8 in Pompano Beach for 4 years, and then I bought a boat, a 31-foot trimaran, and I took it out to the desert, and I completely remodeled it, but I never sailed it. My plan was to sail it all the way to Guam and here to Saipan, but I never sailed it. Instead, I just gave the title to the guy who owned the land, and I bought a plane and I bought a plane ticket and went to Guam. But like I said, then I came back and went to California or Mexico and started working in the hotels again. And I wound up working, first I worked Super 8 in Imperial Beach, and then I worked a couple other hotels, and then I worked in La Quinta Inns and Suites in Pacific Beach. I worked there for 7 years, and it was utter hell the majority of the time. But that's my experience pretty much. It was pretty rough in La Quinta Inns and Suites in Pacific Beach. But yeah, I'm glad that part of my life is over, because it was really rough. Yeah, while I was working La Quinta Inns and Suites, I started saving money and buying music equipment, because I was not giving up on my dream to do music. And at first I started investing in the stock market, and that's also when I changed my political beliefs. I was a Democrat up until that time, but I saw so much chaos going on in California because of the Democratic Party. It was just making me think, and at that time I started investing in the stock market just a little bit. And so I thought I needed somebody to teach me how to do this stuff. So I said I don't want to get a Democrat to teach me how to do this stuff, because Democrats don't know anything about how to make money. So I found a guy who was a Republican who knew a little bit about the stock market, and I asked him to teach me a little bit about the stock market. So in conversing with this guy, slowly he started to talk to me about politics, and at the time he was talking to me about politics, I had a computer setting in front of me. And so he would ask me questions about this or about that. And a lot of the things he would talk about, I didn't believe him. He said, look it up on the computer. You got a computer right there in front of you. Look it up. And so I look it up on the computer, and everything he was talking about was true. And so it made me really question my political beliefs. And then Trump decided he wanted to run for president, and back in 1996, when I was working for Sizzlers as a host cashier, I was also doing stand-up comedy for free. I was getting paid by Sizzlers to be a host cashier, but I was doing stand-up comedy in between my breaks when I wasn't doing anything. And so I got a lot of attention from Hollywood, and I had a lot of writers and directors and stuff coming to see me in Sizzlers in Hawaii. And so I got to meet a lot of important people. Anyways, at that time I was also reading Trump's books, and so I really liked Trump. I liked everything I read about him. And so when he decided he wanted to run for president, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna back this guy. And he was a Republican, I was a Democrat. So at that time I had to go through and really sort out my political beliefs. On my own, I had to do this. I had to figure out exactly, okay, what do Republicans believe? What do Democrats believe? And sort this out myself. In the middle of the night while I was working the hotel, that's when I was sorting it all out most of the time. So I made my own decision. It wasn't an easy decision, but when you change your political beliefs from Democrat to Republican, I was a Democrat for 30 years, and I always thought, oh, Democrats are the good guys and all this kind of stuff. But I found out through talking with the guy who was a Republican that was helping me with the stock market and researching everything out on the internet to find out, okay, what do Democrats believe? What do Republicans believe? And look at the difference, and then seeing what was going on CNN. I was seeing a lot of things that made me question everything that the Democrats were saying. So at that time I changed my party to Republican, and I voted for Donald Trump. And so that was a huge change in my life at that time, and I've been Republican ever since that time, because everything that I learned in that experience has still held true to this day. I encourage anybody who's questionable to go online and search out what is Democrat, what is Republican, and make the decision yourself. Decide for yourself what you think is right and wrong, because a lot of the things they're telling you on CNN and all these other news agencies, it's not true at all. It's not even remotely true. And so yeah. So I switched from Democrat to Republican, and then what happened was, I can't even talk about what happened, but one way or another, Biden wound up being president. And during that time also, there was a whole bunch of riots and stuff like that, and they were burning police cars and burning down buildings and stuff like that. And then on CNN and these other news agencies, they literally had people on there that were saying kill white people. I mean, they were allowed that to be said on national TV. And when I heard that being said on national TV, I was like, that's it, I'm out of here. And because I was already dealing with so much craziness in California already, and then they start talking about killing white people on national TV. But prior to that time period, when I was growing up, you couldn't say stuff like that on national TV at all. You couldn't talk about killing anybody. And now they're openly talking about killing white people like it's no big deal. I was like, okay, that's time for me to leave. And so even though all my life I'd want to be a musician, I'd want to be a DJ, I had $20,000 worth of music equipment that I had bought, because instead of investing in the stock market, I wound up buying all kinds of music equipment because I wanted to invest in myself. And now, because of Biden and the psycho Democrats, I had to sell everything I owned, and I moved here. So that's why I'm in Saipan now, is because of the psycho Democrats and all the craziness that they stirred up in California. Had they not done that, I wouldn't have sold my music equipment. I'd be doing rave parties in the California desert, and it would have been a whole different story. But when COVID happened, I decided at that point I was going to change my life, and I created a YouTube channel during COVID. And everybody said it was crazy to start a YouTube channel during COVID, but I started a YouTube channel. This YouTube channel I started first, but I was just toying around with it. Because like I said, I was going to use this channel for my music. I was actually, all the songs that I recorded, I was going to put on this channel. Never happened. But I did start another channel during COVID, and now that one's actually doing pretty good. It's Mark's Awesome Adventures, if you guys know it. If you don't, go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, so that's leading me on to a whole new future, and I think it will be a brighter future later on down the line. But it's been a long, tough road coming this far. Okay, let me see if I missed anything here. Oh yeah, okay. When I was working in the Air Force in Guam, we were working on a self-help project, and a piece of concrete fell on my head. And when I was 2 years old, I almost died in a well. I almost fell in a well when I was 2 years old. So that's a couple of really bad. And I broke my ankle in Guam as well. Okay, so I came here to Saipan. After that, I started working for Michelle's Furniture in Don Don, if you guys know where that's at. And that was okay. I'm a computer tech, and I got hotel experience. I got 14 combined 14 years of hotel experience. Front desk, night audit, security, and I was a housekeeping supervisor in the Air Force as well for 6 months. So I got a whole range of training in hotels. Not a single one of these hotels in Saipan would hire me for any job. They wouldn't even call me in for an interview. And so I wound up working with Michelle's Furniture. Thank goodness he gave me a job. But the thing about it was they worked me so hard that I tore both ligaments in both elbows, and I couldn't work the job anymore. And so that's what happened to that job. And then only a few months ago, in April, no, March 25th, I was riding down the bike trail, and I veered off to go onto the road, and I hit a hole that used to be where a tree stump was, and my bike flipped, and I broke both arms, and here, and bruised both joints. And when I flipped over, I could have snapped my neck, but I got a really severe concussion. But luckily I was wearing a helmet. But part of the reason that I'm making this video is that, okay, that happened. I could have died instantly in that accident, but it may not be over yet. When you have a serious head injury like that, I could die of an aneurysm tomorrow, and nobody would know. Nobody would know what the hell is going on. It's just boom, that quick. Because when you have an aneurysm, it's fast. And that could happen, and it could be a complication from the injuries I suffered when I had the accident. I wouldn't know anything about it, and then just all of a sudden, boom. So that's part of the reason that I was making this video, is that so people get a better idea of who I am, and it'll also give me some, something to remember, a memorial. I'm hoping everything gets better. My other YouTube channel is doing really well, and I'm hoping that this is going to create a whole brighter future for me, so the rest of my life from this point on is going to be a lot better than it has up until this point. And a lot of people see YouTubers and they think that everything was all great, and it just one day they became successful, but it didn't work out that way. And that's another reason why I wanted to make this, is to show everybody that it's not all easy. And even after you get a YouTube channel, it's work. Some people think you just set up a YouTube channel and then it's all gravy. You just wait for the money to roll in. It don't work like that. Every day I'm working on the YouTube channel, and I have more than one channel. I have this channel and the other channel, and every day I have to work a little bit on each channel. And so it's not like you just make the YouTube channel and the money just rolls in. It doesn't work like that at all. So I wanted to show everybody that you might think your life is hard, but a lot of people have a lot of different struggles in life, and so you just got to deal with what you deal with stuff the best you can, and think positive and look towards the future the best you can. But I wanted people to know a little bit more about me in a little bit more detail than I have before. As it is now, also I wanted to emphasize, okay, so I pretty much talked about everything in my life up until now, but I wanted to say, okay, who am I? Of course I'm doing YouTube, and that's going to be probably my most predominant thing that I do in the future, is going to be YouTube from this point on. But as I mentioned before, I wanted to do music most of my life, and so I still consider myself a musician. I was playing music since 1976. I started playing guitar. That's a long time. And then I got into being a DJ. I was a DJ in a nightclub in 2014, and I wrote a couple of books. One was The New Religion of Kali. None of you guys probably ever read it, but I had it published on the internet for a while. But just like all this censorship and all this stuff is happening now in this world, that's the reason I took my book offline. And that's the reason I'm not even going to mention about my other book. My other book, the people that I wanted to read it, I emailed it directly to them. So those people who got a copy of it, it was a 400-page book. I didn't sell it. I emailed it directly to those people. And so any of you who got that book, I sent it to you as the Web Ninja. I am the Web Ninja. That's another thing that a lot of you don't know. I am the Web Ninja. In order to even have that URL, I had to have been doing it a whole long time. You go to thewebninja.com, you're gonna see my face, and that's because I've been doing the computer stuff for a long time. So when I emailed my book out, I sent it as the Web Ninja. So whoever got a copy of that book, it came from the Web Ninja. And but yeah, because of all the censorship and stuff like that, and I think it's getting worse. It's probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets any better, because you see what's happening in the U.S. now, and I can't even talk about it, especially now that I got a successful YouTube channel. It makes me have to worry about what I say, because so they impose your censorship or they cut off your money. So I can't even talk about things like I used to before, because I got to worry about whether or not I'm going to lose my monetization on my other channel. So yeah, so I can't talk about a lot of stuff, but I'm working on one screenplay now. I think it's a really good, it's a good book and a good screenplay, but I don't want to get into too much detail about that because I don't want anybody to steal my ideas. But it's going to be pretty good, I think. And I designed at least 10 websites. I forgot how many websites I designed when I was the Web Ninja. And I'm a photographer, a computer tech, and a YouTuber. So that's pretty much who I am. I've done a lot of other things. I've studied almost all the different religions in the world, and I have a lot of experience in religion. I studied cybersecurity. I studied web design. There's a lot of things that I went through and I studied, so I have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. I was a diet therapist in the Air Force, and then I went on to study health and nutrition after I got out of the Air Force. I studied Filipino martial arts, Arnis Kali, so I know a little bit of that. So there's a lot of things that I know about. So when I talk about this stuff in future videos, you'll know that I am a little bit experienced in a lot of different things, so it will make a difference in my ability to be able to hold an intelligent conversation about things. So anyways, thanks for watching. If you like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.